Good morning. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 8. I am JP Dinnell, and always I have Lucas with me. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, big man?
How you doing?
I'm old, fat, and cranky. How are you?
I'm good. Running on fumes, but it's good. I'm glad to be here.
I
All right.
your coffee mug.
Yeah, nobody can see it.
Oh, I'm putting that on YouTube. They're getting pictures.
Yeah, whatever. All right. A wise child brings joy to a father. A foolish child brings grief to a mother. Proverbs 10:1. And I chose that verse because I think it emulates our guest today. I'm absolutely honored to introduce our guest this morning. He is a man I have known since 2018. When Amanda and I moved to Texas, we found a gym, a Jiu-Jitsu gym in Keller, Texas, called Peak MMA. And I quickly became friends with him and his brother, Nguyen, or we call Nuj. His wife and my wife became friends. Him and his wife made me and my wife feel like we were part of their group of friends, part of their family. Now, what's interesting about that is this is a solid group of friends that had been very tight and close for a very long time. And usually it's hard to actually make your way into those types of circles of friends and everything. And to be honest, they all brought us inside that circle, which was an absolute blessing. And I know that I'm grateful for his friendship. And I'm also thankful for what I have learned from him over all the years. Every conversation, every interaction, I've always learned something from this gentleman. As I've gotten to know him more and more over the years, I'm amazed at what he has gone through, what he has done, and to be honest, what he's currently doing right now. It's always an awesome opportunity for our families to be able to hang out. He's truly one of those guys where I'm learning from, and I get to pull from him every time we hang out. He's always working on something. He's always seeking more knowledge. He's always bettering himself. He is a very successful businessman. He is an honorable father. He's an honorable husband, and he is a man who I am proud to call my friend. And I'm excited for each of you guys to be able to learn from my buddy Ryan Vong. Good morning, Ryan. How are you?
Good morning, JP.
What's going on, my man?
That was quite the intro, but
it's all factual. And man, it was cool. I text Ryan. I said, "Hey, man, you want to be on my podcast?" And he's like, "Yeah." It was just an instant yes. And this is his first podcast interview, which is going to be awesome. But it's a testament to Ryan. It's like, hey, man, you asked me to come do something. I'm going to do it. We're going to hang out. We're going to talk. We're going to learn. And I'm excited for our listeners to be able to learn from you. So we'll go ahead and jump into it. I mean, your story that I know a little bit of, because we were hanging out at your brother's house one night, and your brother, myself, and you were just talking about how your family came to America. Yeah. And it's a pretty intense story. And man, I'd love for you to share it with Lucas and I and our listeners, if you're comfortable with whatever part of it you want to share. I know we're all going to get something from it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm usually very private about these things, and I only share those stories with good friends.
Okay.
So to do this at this scale, it'll be a first. But
well, I understand there is some hesitation and nervousness maybe with this, but I'll tell you what Jocko told me when I was on his podcast the first time, because I was like, I don't want to share I don't want to talk about it. I believe, from what I know, that by you sharing what you're comfortable with, there are going to be a lot of people that will be impacted in a positive manner, where we will pull lessons from that story, and it's going to make them just be better humans. I know that to be factual.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you with those words, like, this is going to help somebody's life.
No,
guaranteed.
And I appreciate that.
Okay.
I definitely want to share, very good, a lot of aspects of it. And it's, since there's a lot more time and distance, it's a lot easier to talk about. But, we'll just start with, I was born in the 1975, January. So 6 months or 4 months later, so April 30th, 1975 was the fall of Saigon. Mm-hmm. And for those, who hear about the Vietnam War, there's a lot of documentaries, a lot of movies. we were all part of that. And I was born during a time when, the country was really not a country at the time. And growing up in that environment, I was very self-aware, like early on. I think back my earliest memories, and it was probably around 2. I had memories. I asked my parents, things that they would never think that a kid would remember. And it's probably just because the environment we were in. My family was relocated from the city to the countryside, and relocated is a nice word, but forcibly moved out, pretty much. The Viet Cong came and took over our homes, took over everything, and of course I didn't know it at the time, but my grandparents and family was one of the wealthier minority groups there. But overnight they came, they just took everything. You're not living in your house anymore, so good luck, out, or you'll get shot. So it's I didn't know any different growing up, right? We grew up, we're in the countryside, and we were on a farm, and you sort of live your childhood, doing little things. And I do remember trying to help my parents just plant potatoes because I just saw what they were doing, and they don't really say much about what they're going through because you're a kid and they don't think you understand. But yeah. I think kids are more tapped into their parents than you ever imagine, just emotionally connected. And I wanted to help, and they made me a little hose to dig with, and I would carry it with me, and we'd have to go up to the farm and walk like miles just to get to this place. I'd help them, and I just see them out there, and just and you don't have sunblock, you don't have there's just nothing. You got possibly sandals, and you're out there, and so I just grew up not having a lot, and it's what I know. We just stayed there for a while. But I think one of the biggest decisions that my dad made in his life, really, really proud of him for doing that, is he saw, and we spoke about this later in life. He said, I saw you with the hoe trying to help us, and I knew that I didn't want this for you. He's like, I don't want this for you at all. And I just knew I had to get out. Don't know how I was going to do it. We have no money, but we had to leave. We have to go. And, if you think about it from his perspective, at the time he has 3 kids at the time, really young. And when you say we have to go, you're risking your entire family, your wife, your children, to take a chance at something you don't even know. You don't know what you're going to encounter, and you have no resources to really ever get there. And I think, it's sort of an analogy for most of us sometimes in life where we're like, I have no idea. I just have this feeling I got to do something, but I have no resources, nothing to do. Right. And for him, it's thousands of miles, and, there's just no way around it. He knew he had to go. So I do remember the night we left, and I didn't realize at the time, but there had been months of preparation. I mean, they had planned the routes. They have folks back then that would sort of smuggle people out of the country, and it was obviously illegal. If you got caught, you were in prison or just basically killed. Your life wasn't worth a whole lot. And I do remember the night we left. It was small, and I walked. It was night. I mean, you had to sort of kind of go in the cover of darkness, really. A group of us got together, went to my grandma's house, and my dad sort of, carried my sister. My mom had my little brother Nuj on his back, on her back, and a little bag, and I was walking next to them. And we sort of snuck out in the night. And I recall this really specifically, asking, where are we going? Like,
Yeah.
hey, where are we going? And, just they're like, shh, you have to be quiet. Why? We're leaving and we can't wake anybody up, So, for a kid to understand, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to wake anybody up. They're asleep. I'm like, oh. And
Because they didn't want you to be scared.
yeah,
They're trying to protect you. Okay.
they just, wanted to not
Yeah.
worry me or anything. And it was just one of those things that, what are you going to tell your kid, right?
Yeah. I couldn't fathom that.
So we made our way, and I have like very specific visual like recall of some of these trips that, later on in life, I asked him, I was like, hey, we were riding on some bus, and she goes, do you remember what the bus looked like? So, because apparently there was like other multiple bus routes to get to the sea. At the time you had, a lot of people being hunted down for doing things like this. And in order to make it out of there was like, you really had one route. You're hoping when you leave, you end up in a good country, right? Like you accidentally land in Thailand or something. Never in Cambodia, because no one ever came back from Cambodia. Like if you landed there, you would not make it back. And this is during the Pol Pot regime, the killing fields, and those guys were pretty deadly people, like evil. I mean, if there was evil, this was it, right? And so, and you have to remember, like we snuck out, and the people that you're going with are also just common folks, and the captain of these boats that go out are local fishermen. They don't know the ocean,
Yeah.
They're fishermen.
Yeah.
And these boats they're pretty small with a lot of people. And if you ever get a chance to just Google like Vietnamese boat people and the imagery that comes up, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I remember just, my grandma meeting us somewhere and just saying goodbye. And I loved my grandma. I mean, I still do. Mm-hmm. And she just looked at me and I was like, "Are you coming with us?" She's like, "No, just go." And that it was, with a kid. I mean, you're like, why not? Mm-hmm. So we ended up on a boat, and it's interesting because the boat had a lower deck, and the first thing people do is like they rush to get on the bottom because they believe that's the place where you would be sheltered from weather. Mm-hmm. And you go out and you're hoping for like a 2-day journey in the sea to get into Thailand on a fishing boat. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot that was going on. As you enter the waters of Thailand, some of the things that happen are, I mean, they're just, they would call them pirates. I guess they are pirates.
Yeah.
At the time, there was just a field day for those guys. They would go out, hunt down these boats of refugees that were leaving, and hop on the ships. They would take the women. They would never bring them back. They would search everyone for money, jewelry, anything they had. And I remember them coming onto our boat, no idea what was happening. And my mother was fairly young at the time, she was just in her 20s. And there was just no mercy on, it's whatever they wanted. Mm-hmm. And you have to think we were powerless, like as a group of people with nothing, floating out in the water, hungry. Just like, as a kid, just seeing some of these things that didn't make sense then. I remember being on the boat and our engine, that's the worst thing, like the engine stopped. Some piece or part was broken. And we're like, okay. everyone. There was just like an awareness something was wrong. And instead of a 2 or 3 day trip, we were flown out there for like a week or so, just waiting for, and you don't have a lot to bring.
Yeah.
So you're going to run out of water. You're going to run out of everything. And when it gets bad, the true nature of people come out, right? And my mother was an incredibly giving woman. Like, she loved deeply. She was empathetic. The first part of our trip, we had like a gallon of water with us. And, there was another kid on the ship that was sick and needed water. And my mother gave them some. And she just like sacrificing our water rations and gave it to them, to that family. And one night, we woke up and the water was gone. Like, our water was gone. And I've never heard my mother just cry. And it's still fresh. Because it's, that realization as a parent that this is going to affect your kids.
Yeah.
And, she went back to the lady who she gave water to, and they had water at this point. And she said, no, can't give you any. And I think that changed my mother, for sure. That changed her. I mean, she's in her 20s, 3 kids, and here's a woman who's forever changed by that incident. She was never the same. And I saw it, as a child. I was like 4. I saw it. And something in her eyes, something just changed in her, where she was like, okay, this is how it's going to be. And this is the reality we live in now. She just became extremely protective, and, just from a lot of things. I remember first time seeing someone get tossed over the boat. And I was like, Dad, what happened? Did that person do something? I was like, no, son, she didn't survive. She's older, and she didn't make it. She fell asleep, and she's not waking up. So, so we have to toss her over. It's like, oh, okay, that's death, as a kid. And there's just, when you're going through that, it's almost impossible to describe some of the smells, like the smell of people, the smell of death, the smell of just that point in your life. Like, and I'm a child seeing these things, right? So, we're floating out there again, going back to then you seeing people taking advantage, like the pirates coming on board and dragging girls, women onto their ships, and you can see them cry. You can hear them, and you can see the parents just begging for their children, and they were getting rifle butted right in the face. Just no, knowing that they'll never. And I'm just like, why are they taking them? Shut up. It's like,
Yeah.
Don't say anything. Shut up. And just seeing humans probably at its worst.
Yeah.
At its worst. But luckily, we we ended up in Thailand. And it's a really interesting way that happens back then. So at the time, there were quite a few refugees, like just boats everywhere trying to land somewhere, because they're just leaving a country where you're not going to survive, hoping another place is taking you in. And, you know, I don't know if there was like some law or something, but when the boats approached the islands, in some places, the government will tow your boat back out to the ocean because they don't want you to land. Because once you land, they have to take care of it. I guess there's some rule of engagement or something. Like if you land, they have to deal with it. But if you're not there yet, you don't. So a lot of guys would they'd just have boats tow you back out, just keep towing you back out, and you're hoping to try to come in. For us, I think I asked my dad about this later on in life, and he said, "Yeah, we got really close, and then we started to break our boat down, essentially sank it, just so they can't tow us out."
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we ended up, and I remember this, these were all so visual to me. You have we're approaching land, right? After all this time, you go, oh, we're here. I don't know where here was, but get up. Everybody gets up. Everybody's looking. The boat's starting to sink. We're not near the shore, but my dad's holding me on his shoulder. We're kind of going into the water, and he's like, "Don't step in the water. Don't get in the water." Why? As a kid, I'm always asking questions.
Yeah. That's natural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You see those black things in the water? It's like, yeah, they have a lot of spikes on them. They'll go right through your foot. Oh, okay. And it's not like if you think about a beach in Thailand. Oh, I'm gonna go. Nice soft sands. Nothing. It's not like that. Where we were at was rocks that were razor sharp, with sea urchins and things that would just poke right through your foot, and you're barefooted. You don't have shoes.
Yeah.
Right? And he's carrying his kid. He's trying to drag his, and my mother's dragging my little brother. At this time, my little brother was really sick, and he almost didn't make it. Nugent almost didn't make it. He doesn't know, but he almost didn't make it. He was so sick. He had there was just moments where I was like, gosh, I hope, I remember holding my brother, when he was born. I remember my mother being carried to the hospital when she was pregnant with him. It's I have some really, deep
Core memories.
Yeah. It was just incredible. And I just remember holding my little brother, just wow. I'll love this guy forever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
So you make it to Thailand.
Yeah, we make it to Thailand. I don't remember how long we were there, but I believe it was about 6 months. I asked my parents this later. And it's just camps, right? You're by the water. It's a refugee camp, so you don't have very much.
Yeah.
And there are lots and lots of families all hanging around. And, you're doing your best to, again, as a kid, it's just you're running around and playing with other kids in the water and doing stuff. And then I remember one day just, waking up and walking out, and I see somebody coming back, being kind of carried back. And I was like, Mom, why is she being carried back? She goes, don't ask. I can't explain it to you. I said, why is she bleeding? She has blood, on her legs. Don't ask. It's I can't explain it to you. Okay. At this point, when you've seen so much, you just kind of learn that when your parents just don't ask, you just don't anymore. At this point, you just go, okay. Yeah, and so some of those things just happen. Like,
Yeah.
we just don't. It's hard to imagine, right? Like as a child seeing these things, it's hard to imagine what goes in your head because you just can't make sense of any of this stuff, and yet it's so real. And yet at the same time, you have those moments where, like trying to catch fish between some rocks with my hands, and we're all excited as little kids, and we're able to like, just do kid things, right? Like just really kid things. It's like the first time I ever smoked a cigarette too. It was like hilarious. It was just funny. I'm like, what is that? They're like, it's a cigarette. And I'm like, can I try it? My dad was there, and some other, of his buddies were just hanging out on a rock, sitting there talking, smoking. Sure. And boy, that was like not the what I expected. I mean, they look pretty like normal doing it. I probably threw up. I mean, like I was like, oh, it was hilarious. Like, again, you have like moments like that, right? It's just funny. It's like funny, and they just, sure, like it's just like they don't think about this. It's like,
well, what's crazy is like nowadays. I was just thinking as you're saying that, I'm like, if I saw another parent like let their kid smoke a cigarette, I'd be like, what in the heck are you doing? Like, this is ridiculous. But given everything you just told us, which we know is like a sliver, it's a sliver of what you've endured and gone through. I'm kind of like, let the kid have a cigarette. You know what I mean?
He's earned it.
He's earned it. Out of everything else that's going on, I think he's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well,
But it's just funny, like you hear all the other stuff. And I'm like, dude, cigarette ain't. Bro, like,
cigarette is nothing. But there's another reason, and I didn't know it at the time. There were other little kids that were just running around smoking. Smoking helps curb appetite.
Oh,
when you don't have a lot of food, and you can give your kids cigarettes, it keeps them from going hungry.
Wow.
So.
Holy cow.
Little kids smoking, third world countries, you see them. I know exactly why they're smoking. It's not because they're addicted to it. It's because they have nothing to eat. And it helps them not feel hungry. So it's, it's not your common knowledge thing. But,
yeah, no kidding.
For me, it was just like, I just wanted to try it,
Yeah.
But I don't think my dad was trying to like do that for me. It was just like whatever. And like I see other little kids do it.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, all right.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Do not be sorry.
That's
that's insight of something I've never known about, and it just really changes perspective on. Just how good we have things.
Oh,
and I know, you're going to get into that, which I'm excited.
I cannot even tell you.
I feel like a horrible human sitting next to you for all the things I've ever complained about in life.
No.
So we're in Thailand. Mm-hmm. How do you get out of Thailand? Where do you go? What do you do? Where do you go next?
So in order to leave, you have to be sponsored. So at this time, there was, this was well known. A lot of families end up being adopted by churches, right? So they end up everywhere.
And what year is this, you think, ish?
79.
This is 79.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So, between 75 and I think 83 was the big wave.
Okay.
And you have like different waves of people leaving. So the first wave in 75 through 77 were the sort of more, I'd say, wealthier people leaving. Like they're more educated. They had more resources to leave.
Okay.
And then you have the folks.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Then you have like people like us who kind of came in the second wave. And then you have like the third wave of people now. Like now you're going into the 80s and it gets harder, right?
Okay.
Back then it was because the U.S. was involved in the war. It was like, hey, open up the borders. Let these people, they are being persecuted.
Yeah.
Let's bring them.
Like actual persecutions going on.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's just, lots. I mean, out in the streets. I mean, there was just stuff you just don't. And you've been to war. You've seen what that looks like. And you cannot describe it to anyone unless you walk through a place that has been through battle. Like it just can't, seeing bodies or whatever. It's just like, it's not a, the movies is, okay, gets close, but there's no smell to that.
No. That's the thing that always gets me is smell.
The smell. There is a smell to it that you will never, and hopefully,
never smell it ever again.
Nobody has to.
No, and I don't want people to. And that's,
no.
And I'm sure you probably can't describe that to your wife properly.
No.
I've tried to describe it to Amanda before because there's some things I'm willing to bet it's the same for you. I will get triggered by smells.
Yeah.
Like the smell of blood.
Yeah.
Bothers me. That's like I've gone hunting a few times and skinned animals and people are all about it. And I'm just like, I literally have to shut my brain off because that smell of blood. And then there's other things as well, like what you're just saying, like all of a sudden it's just like, it brings you right back to,
right back.
Like, I'm sure you can remember the color of buildings painted and the vehicles and everything that was in that time.
It's a very visual time, and it's like, when you're at that age too, your brain's developing, and
which is crazy. Yeah. I was in my early 20s, and I would actually been trained in preparing for war. You're an innocent kid.
Yeah,
you're an innocent child.
Yeah, and you're just like, it's like, when you're 4 or 5, you're so curious about the world. You're learning everything. Everything's new. Everything's fresh. Everything's heightened, right? So what are you heightening it with? Everything during that time, right? So, yeah, so you get sponsored.
Okay.
My grandpa luckily left in 75. He was one of those first wave of people and he was a politician. He was part of the military. He was going to get executed. Point blank shot, and he left. There's a whole story of him like not wanting to leave too, and my grandma just kicked him out. And he's like, he had his pistol. He's like, I'm gonna stay right here, and I'm not letting them take me alive. And my grandma's like, no, you are out. You're one of these people that can get out. You might as well give it a chance. Wow. And she pushed him, and he ended up in America and through the Red Cross, found us, was able to get papers. I don't know how all that worked, but
the man upstairs helped guide a lot of that.
Yeah,
Let's go. That's insane.
It is absolutely, and then we got our papers and such, but it was like a really interesting time during that period. I have, and I actually didn't realize what some of the triggers were until later on in life. Honestly, it was like I remember. I'll fast forward to this because it's kind of like related.
Yeah, let's go.
Jeanette's Jeanette's my wife. She, at the time we were just dating. She's like, hey, there's a new restaurant opening up and it's like really popular and I managed to get us on the wait list and all this stuff. And I'm a simple guy. I don't need fancy restaurants, but she wanted to like try it out. I was like, cool. And I remember getting there and it was this huge line to get in. And I was feeling like sort of nervous already. I'm a little sweaty. I'm like, something's not right. Of course, I go, let's just go stand in line and, and I stood in line and I just started to like freak out. I'm like having this moment. I'm like, and then I'm starting to get angry. And she's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't care what kind of food they're serving. It is absolutely not, with more profanities than I'm saying it now. I don't care what they're serving. It's not. I'm not standing here waiting for this. And so I'm like, I'm gonna go to the car. I'm gonna take my ball away. Like I went to the car, and she's like, "What is happening? It's just a wait." And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know why." And I thought about it. I'm like, I do know. For 6 months in Thailand, every day we would stand in line to go get food. And you get food for your family. And my mom, who is she's wicked smart, right? She's wicked smart. She's like, they give the kids a bigger scoop. When they call your dad's name, I want you to stand in line. Walk up there. 2 bowls. They'll give you a bigger scoop, and they will have more food. So, adults are supposed to be standing in line. I stood in line. Always got big scoops of food because they're like, oh, little kid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm smiling. I have no idea why I'm doing it, but like, okay, I'm standing in the line with a bunch of adults with little bowls getting food. I did it every day because it's the only way you ate.
Yeah.
And so, standing in line for food, not my thing. It's just like, I make no excuses for it now. It's just, I still prefer a simple meal where I can just eat. I don't care what it is I'm eating. I mean, I like great food, but it's just not like.
Yeah, we've had some good meals together.
Yeah.
But what you're saying, as soon as you're saying that, I was like, oh, I know what's going on here. And it's very valid, man. Yes. It's valid for you to feel that way.
It is. But man, at the time, boy, was she disappointed that we didn't get to try this new restaurant. She didn't understand it until I explained it. And she's an amazing woman, right? Now, if there's a line, she's like, he's not going to wait. If there's a line there, just know she's not going to wait.
He's not going to wait.
Yeah, we'll wait. He'll sit in the car. He'll do stuff, and then when we get close, he'll come up. Okay, but she protects me from that, right?
Wow.
Because and look, at some point, I gotta get over that. I just gotta get over that. Let's just do it. I mean, it's just like it's unreasonable, but right now it's a work in progress.
Okay, well, I like what you're saying in regards from like an ownership standpoint of like what you're saying, but I'm also like, bro, that was ingrained into who you are at a critical moment of your development as a young kid. I can't find my words properly. Like,
no,
I mean, I understand you wanting to get over that, but from my perspective, completely detached, listening to you tell that story and just thinking about, hey, that's like a legitimate traumatic event that happened while you're developing yourself in these core just critical moments as a kid. Like, you might not ever get over that, and if you don't, who cares? Like, who cares? And like you said, your wife protects you of that. You have friends and family that protect you of that because that's something that you just don't like. And it bothers you because of what you went through. You went through something that most Americans will never be able to understand. Most people, most humans will never actually be able to understand what you're talking about. They might empathize with you. I hope so. But they'll have never felt that. And so,
well, because you're a good friend, you will say that, but for me, I want to get over it because that shows healing. That shows absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I agree with that aspect also. Yeah. And you're right. I am being protective of you.
Yeah.
But I also, whether you're a friend or not, hearing that story bothers me. Yeah. And I know it bothers you, and I know it's going to bother our listeners as well. But I also, like I said, I respect the fact that you want to get over it because it does promote healing, and that's something we can dive into in the future sometime. But that's a unique story, and your wife is absolutely amazing, rock star. So let's get back to, so you get to America, right? So where do you go? And then tell me a little bit about like just you're in America, where are you living, and what does your grandfather kind of help develop for the community and So we, went on my first airplane ride. It was pretty cool. Little different from the other former transportation you had.
Very different. And boy, cold. cold. You're talking like never ever been cold. You're in Southeast Asia, like you have no concept of jackets and whatever. Like it's not cold,
dude.
But then I'm in an airplane, and I have what is an equivalent to pajamas. Right? It is cold, but I do remember the first sort of act of kindness, and I was a kid, and one of the airline stewardess, she had a glove and just blew it and made a little kind of a balloon thing and gave it to me. And of course, I just looked at it. She gave it to me, and nobody gives you anything, right? Like it's just like nobody ever gave me anything. Like it's the first time I'm getting anything that was not being bargained for or asked, like in any way. And she just gave it to me, and I'm like, I'm so happy I have this like glove that I was like trying to not let it kind of deflate.
Yeah.
It's like I've never had a toy, so I don't even know what a balloon is, right? So here it is, like this was my first like balloon, if you think about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I didn't grow up with toys. I have nothing. So I have no concept of toys. And here's the balloon. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is fun. It's like not a stick. It's like a real thing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, it's so awesome. But just the kindness, the warmth of that smile and that engagement. It's crazy how people can leave impressions like that in your life that she had no clue she did anything great. And all she had to do was leave that feeling for a child who at that moment really needed it.
Yeah.
It was just like, I can say this as an adult now, but it's just like, wow, I don't think how these things get connected, right? And so we landed in San Francisco. I think it was like December.
Cold.
Yeah. It was like in December. I had to go check my papers to see exactly what it was, but it was like December. And it was in San Francisco. And I have never been that cold before. It was like, whoa.
Yeah, it gets cold in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah, San Francisco's cold in the summer.
Yeah, year round. Like, yeah.
Yeah. But it was great. It was, when you're traveling like that, when you're in a refugee camp, and you keep asking like, where are we going? And they describe this place called America to you. Man, it's like really incredible. Like it has what? It has like, just anything that they're saying. Like, my parents, of course, making all of this up because they've never been. They don't know. It's like they don't know, but they're like, yeah. But the only thing I cared about was they said your grandpa's there, and I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
That's all that mattered. But they just like described this place, and and I think a lot of it was my dad just saying, look, you get to do and be whatever you want in this place. Like I was like, what does that mean? He goes, you get to think. You get to play. You get to do whatever you want. It's an opportunity, and you don't know what that is yet, but it's an opportunity for whatever you want. And I was like, wow, okay. Like, I want good food. I want, like, stuff, right? Yeah. So is that what you're talking about? Yeah, but a lot of other things, too. I'm like, okay. So my grandpa, I don't know. I think we stayed. They put us up in. I think there was like the Red Roof Inn at the time. Like one family.
They're still around.
They still are around. Yeah, right by the airport. And the next day, I see my grandpa, and when I was younger, I never saw him because he left, right? But his story was built up. Like this man was built up in my head on who he was, what he did, and all of this stuff. And I was like, wow, this legendary man. But here, he's driving up in his Buick, it's picking us up. And it's so odd to meet my grandpa, we first of all, culturally, we don't hug. So it's not like, man, you just kind of, you don't even stare. Like, that's the other thing too. Like, you don't look at any adult straight in the eye. That's a challenge. That means you're challenging what I'm saying.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So culturally, you know, if you see a lot of Asian kids look down when you're talking to them, it's out of respect. It's not, it's, if they look at you in the eye, it's disrespectful. So it's like the opposite. And here we are, like, look at them in the eye, you know, all this stuff. No, you don't. You're challenging the person.
Huh.
Right. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of like nuances to stuff, but it's, you know, like, it's cultural. And so, you know, you're looking down and so we get in the Buick, we go down, and he stops at this place called a supermarket. Why are we, okay, are we here? No, we're just stopping. Because we had to go from San Francisco down to San Jose. He stops at a supermarket. I was like, what? It's like a store? Like I've never seen a store either. Like,
yeah.
Like, I grew up in the country. I don't know what a store is. So just stay in the car. And he brings back, I kid you not, it was the best grapes I've ever had in my entire life. I knew what they were because I remember grapes naturally in the wild, you know, up in the farm. And the first time I ever tried to pick one and eat it, my dad like slapped it out of my hand and it was like, don't eat that. Like, why? Because, you know, it's not clean. Like, there could be stuff, right? Like, but, you know, here I am being given a bag of grapes again. Like, I'm like nervous that my dad's going to slap it out of my hand, or like, it was just like, he goes, it's okay. These are clean. I'm like, oh, I swear. It was like, I don't know. It was like a green grape that it was the best thing I've ever tasted my entire life. It was like, I was savoring it. And after I ate one, you like looked around to see if you can eat a second one, right? Because as a kid, you're taught to only eat enough where you left it food for others, because there was never enough. It's like if there was things out on the table, you would never be the person that takes the last thing.
Wow.
Right? You don't.
Yeah.
You always leave it to the elders to decide. You know, you know, you just it's hard to like explain to people like growing up to never have ever felt what it felt like to be full. Like it's not a natural like, oh, I'm so full. And no, there's no such thing. It's like you don't know what that's like, right? And you don't know what it's like to have enough of something because it's never been that way. So you eat one grape. Here I am, like excited about the one grape, and then I get a whole freaking bunch of them. I'm like sitting in the back seat, just going crazy with these grapes, man.
Did you make yourself sick?
You know, I don't remember.
Okay, I'm just
curious. I don't remember, but I was probably on a sugar high.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like,
dude, that's amazing.
It was funny. It was hilarious, man. It was like, and everybody was fine with it. I think it's the strangest thing. Like everybody was fine with it for the first time. I didn't feel like I had to like consider anybody else not having something or not eating, right? Like you have to really think about that. Like, you know, you ate and then you make sure everyone else got something to eat. You know,
crazy,
right? As a kid, come on, like what kid thinks like that, right? But but you know, again, circumstances will train you to anything, no matter what age, right? Like just that's how that works.
Yeah.
So we end up, in San Jose, was there, still cold. I don't care. It was like freezing. Like, let's just remember how cold it is. I'm like, man, America's cold. Mm-hmm. It's like, but that was it. That was like
you're on the West Coast in the wintertime, man. It's not warm.
No, it's not warm. Yeah.
So you get down there, and okay. So what was it like growing up as a kid? What did your parents do? What was your grandfather doing? What was that like?
So it was my grandfather. It was our family. It was my uncle, my uncle's family. My grandpa had like 7 kids, right? And then some of them had families. We all lived in one place. Like one place. It was like down, you know, it was like near downtown San Jose. He like rented a house.
Oh, wow.
But every family, I think there was probably 4 bedrooms. Like every family had a room. Like that was it. You know, like mom, dad on one bed, me, my brothers. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I didn't have a bed to myself until I went to college. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, it was a normal thing.
Okay.
Trust me, like my brothers, like we're so used to the 3 of us in a room. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like,
That's cool.
it's like,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
cool. It's cool.
So when did your grandmother make it to the United States?
Yeah, all of them came in separate boats. They all took a different boat. I didn't realize it was by design that we weren't together.
Okay.
And it was because in case some of us didn't make it.
Got it.
So they all individually went to different places. I tried to get the names of the places, you know, everything. But luckily we all sort of kind of came almost the same time.
Okay.
So we all ended up in the same
In
place.
Thailand together? Was your grandmother
No.
in Thailand with you? No.
Yeah,
Okay.
different
So
places.
different. Okay.
Yeah, different
Okay.
regions of Thailand.
Okay.
So they were in different camps because we all kind of split up and ended up in different camps.
And then how would you know where they're at? It's not like you can communicate with different
don't.
camps.
You
Yeah, it's
don't.
not.
You don't.
Yeah.
You didn't until everybody's like, did they make it? Did they make it? I mean, like, you don't.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like there's a cell phone or
There's literally zero form of communication.
yeah, zero. Except for postings, I think they had like the Red Cross would put bulletins, right, of things. Like you could put something on, and I think they somehow distributed it. I don't remember how that all worked. I asked my mother about that, and she's like, yeah, you know, the Red Cross would get you mail, or, you know, you can write to someone if there's an address, or post a bulletin. They would share it with other Red Crosses. You know, somehow they were able to, like, as an organization, distribute messages. And I have no clue how that worked, but thank God it works.
Yeah. Do you have a subconscious just thankfulness and support to the Red Cross?
Oh yeah. Oh, my
I mean,
goodness.
I gotta imagine there's got to be a connection. Like,
I am so indebted. I could never pay that back. Yeah. And organizations like that are just doing incredible work. Like, you know, sometimes, unfortunately, they get dragged through the ringer about like how their expenses and blah, blah, blah. But
yeah.
I don't care. Like the little bit they do more than you think. Right? It's like,
yeah, I always knew the Red Cross did good stuff, but when you hear your story, it just really puts a different perspective on the fact that there's so many things and there's so many stories like yours that none of us will ever know about. And I know sharing the story was hard, but I'm telling you, man, like somebody hearing what you shared, it's going to change their life. And I know you also filtered out a lot, because I've heard other little bits that you've told me before that were just insane. And I'm just so thankful for the grace that God has given you and your family over the years, man. And then and I love like what you're about to talk about is like what your grandfather was able to kind of develop and create is just absolutely incredible. And I know that kind of helped define who you are as a man.
Yeah. Yeah. He did, you know, he was a myth and then he's real. You know, his backstory is just incredible. And I owe a lot of my views of life through, you know, because of him. You know, I think like the greatest teacher, you know, to have someone you can look up to who stood for it and lived it. And that's the key. You know, he did, you know, he was born in the 20s, right? So he was an old man, lived through a lot. He went through you know, he speaks fluent French, you know, because back then it was like Indochine. It was like, you know, he's part of the French colonies back then. He's went through war. I mean, he was, you know, and he had such great wisdom to share along the way. And he would every Saturday force us just me at the time, to learn history, to learn something, to learn Chinese, which I'm not good at. And he would just make us learn. And he said to me one time, I never forget it. And it's like, I'm fortunate in the fact that I think about what people say very deeply. And I think that has helped a lot. Like, there's surfacey types of things people say, and then there's think deeply about what they just said, right? Like, go through every aspect, inspect every little piece of the words that they said. And those, like, the wisdom came through early on. And, he said, look, in war, the civilians are the ones that suffer. And I said, okay, there is good, there is evil, but the civilians are the ones that suffer. And that meant a lot. I don't know why it meant a lot, but it was like, oh, we lived that. And he says, like, no matter how justified a war is, the civilians are the ones that suffer, right? And so we forget that. Yeah. I think sometimes we think, oh, yes, we're doing this, but it's like that is what it's affecting more than anything. His wisdom was incredible. He, throughout the years, I mean, he had counseled me in so many things. And he, from a guy who was really well known, and it's funny, the only reason why he got out of Vietnam during that time was during the years when people were getting drafted, for the war. There was a lot of people that came to him and offered him money, gold, things to not have their children get drafted. He never took a bribe. That's what I kid around. I'm like, Grandpa, that's why you're poor. I'm like, you did the wrong thing.
As he backhands you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That old school grandpa. He's like, come here. Whack.
And he never took a bribe. My uncle went to war. Like, he was like, no, like, during that time, he didn't protect his children from it. He said, you're going. Like, my uncle, it was my dad's older brother. Like, he went. He was like, and no, you're not sitting at a desk. You're going to do what normal people do. Right. And
that's incredible.
He believed in it. And no matter what came out of it, he was an example of what he said. And I think that was so important to him, that you live what you say. It was important to him to tell me that when you say something, you mean it and you do it. That's it. Like, there was no other, like, interpretation of those things, right? You say you're going to do something, just do it. There's no other, like, other way
option
around. Yeah. Like, so there was like a direct line to it. Like, that was it. And, when he came, he started a community. What he noticed was a lot of the refugees at the time who came, older, immigrant families, like, and they have, parents that pass away. They have no money to bury their parents. Like, they just started, right? Like, they have nothing.
Yeah.
He also noticed that there were a lot of people from the old country who had skills, restaurateurs, bankers, all of these people had skills that you can't get credit here in this country, like, without history. And they have no history because it's not here.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you can't go to the bank and say, hey, I want to open up a grocery store because that's what I did, and, like, give me credit. Like, huh?
Yeah.
Right? Who?
No, you don't exist.
You don't exist, right? So the banking system didn't work for us at all. So he created a database of all the people, created an association that would lend money to each other and would support the businesses. So, when I was a kid, we went to this one place, and then you guys probably nowadays, I don't know if it's out here in but in the West Coast, it was like TK Noodle, right? Little noodle shop.
Okay.
And the guy came, said, this is what I did. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Okay, vouch for you. I had to eat at that place every freaking Saturday with my parents. Like, I have no idea. Like, why do we eat here every Saturday?
To support the business.
Yeah. Well, no, it was because your grandpa said so.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Okay, well, I
Yeah.
mean, I like that. I like that option
It
too.
was like funny. I was like, oh, okay, no questions. Just support the business would mean nothing to me at the time.
well, yeah,
Like,
that's true.
I know. But that's, and they would have these like meetings at our house, and I didn't know. I was like, man, there's a lot of cash floating around. Just, they would do it's like a whole underground banking thing, and I don't know how. The best way I can describe it is your reputation is all that matters.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
That was the same thing in the SEAL teams. Like your reputation was everything for you.
Yeah. You have no credit score. We don't care about your credit score.
Yeah.
We care about who you are as a person, your skill set, what have you done for others? What kind of person are you, right? Do you only take? So, and can you really do this? Like, do people trust you? And then they would have these like meetings where everybody like puts down a number, and they didn't know what it was. It's like literally like a fishbowl, and they put these numbers down, and they would put it in, and they draw and open up the fishbowl to see what the numbers were. The number is the interest you're willing to pay back for the loan that you're taking. So everybody would put a number of what they're willing to pay back in interest. I didn't find that until later. I'm like, what are these numbers? Like, why are they here every Saturday too, by the way? Like, all these people. But that's how the banking worked. It's like you would pay the loan back over a period of time, and everybody in the community would support your business for the entire year.
Wow.
And that, so some of these great giant like Ranch 99 and like Line Plaza and all these things all started this way.
No way.
Oh yeah, like the whole thing. His network grew from like San Francisco all the way down to L.A. And then for the other things too, he started, for the insurance, the life insurance policy. There was no policy. That means if you died, the whole community would put $20 in an envelope and send it to the family. The entire community. There's your burial costs, right there. Right, just there. And sometimes you get 2 or 3 letters a month. And you're like, man. My parents are like, whoa, okay, that's a lot of money this month for this. But it's like done.
Yeah.
And I was a kid, this is how I got it. He's like, you have a computer? I'm like, yeah. It was like the first computers, like I got a little Tandy, a little printer. Over the summer, he'd say, okay, I want you to like take these things and just type me labels. Like mailing labels, and put it in this floppy disk, like a.
Oh yeah.
Because I showed it to him, and he's like, "You could do that." I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'll pay you $20." I was like, 3 books stacked full of profiles of people, and I'm just like sitting there typing it, all in addresses and stuff, so he can just make it easier because you had to handwrite them back then.
Yeah.
Right. You just print out all these labels, and he would mail out the envelopes, and so there's a plot of cemetery. Oak Hill Cemetery in San Jose that he dedicated the entire like plot of land because he also like thought, I need a resting place for our people. And so back then their association bought an entire plot of land for all the people to get buried there.
Talk about just forward thinking.
No kidding.
Yeah, incredible. And then he started Chinese schools. I laugh because it was like the Chinese school was at some dilapidated home that they like the association purchased, so they can teach school in the garage with gravel on the floor, a chalkboard, and we're all freezing cold again on Saturdays. It's just like, why am I here? I want to play. Like, no, you're gonna go to school and you're gonna pay a tuition, right? And so that's like the other thing too. Is like, I don't care where. It's just traditions as a society, traditions as a family. Traditions are so important to reinforce. They really are. Without them, we're just kind of making stuff up, right? Versus like generations of thought have gone into these things, right? It's kind of like, you know, when you join the military, there's a tradition you tapped into.
Yep.
A whole lineage of rule sets and thinking and everything that went in there that was given to you. It's a blessing to have that. It's a blessing. And yeah, you can add new ones and such, but be part of that, you know? And tradition isn't, it's like, it doesn't have to be like people. It's that tradition is what you're adopting, and you plug into that. I think that's really where, you know, we'll probably go in tangents on this. I really have comments about family, society, everything nowadays, like missing.
Let's go. Open it, please.
No, I think it's just like, it's missing that. It's missing that tradition. You know, when I was growing up, when I got punished, unlike, you know, if you think about like punishment now, it's like you did this wrong, and yes, people have gotten, you know, I've got my fair share of like belts and all that stuff, but
Same.
You know, the worst punishment wasn't that.
Yeah. No.
My in our home, we have a sort of like an altar with your great grandparents who I've never met. They're drawings on the wall. When I got punished, my dad would put an incense on a timer, and it's kind of like he lights it. He goes, I want you to kneel, and I want you to look at these people. I want you to think about the shame you're bringing them. I'm like, I don't even know them. They're like your great-grandparents. I want you to then think about your grandparents. I want you to think about us. And I want you to think about what you did that puts shame into your family. What you did, how you shamed us. And he would have the stupid thing burn. Like, you know, it's like, don't get up until this thing's done. And man, as a kid, it's long just as an adult, but man, for a while, you know, and you had to sit there and think about those things, right? Like, that's tradition, right? Mm-hmm. Do you feel embarrassed when you do something that embarrasses the family, right?
Yeah.
And I think we missed that. I think we lost that. I think the drive towards like individualism, too hard, one way, just ignores what has already been built, right? So and you know, so I really think that it's hard. Like I try to get back into sort of a more of a like nuclear centered life, I guess. Like first master yourself, right? Like who you are. When you hear the words, you know, when you're talking to yourself, whose voice is that? Whose voice? What does it sound like? Right? And you have to really be comfortable with that introspection. You know, there are quite a few sayings out there, but it's I truly believe that, you know, you can't change society unless you change yourself, right? And you have to start there. You have to know what is in there. What is the core? Can you be easily shaken? Can you be easily moved around? Are you a person that is strong inside? It has to be there first before you can lead, before you can do anything. And I start there, and I've spent many hours. And my grandpa's, you know, he used to tell me every night. He said, look, every day when you get home, before you sleep, I want you to account for your day. I want you to account for it. I was like, what do I mean? He's like, think about everything you did today. Think about everything that's good. Think about everything that's bad. Think about what it is that you want to do tomorrow based on the knowledge you learned from the day previous. And that's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. I was like, oh. And in that process, you grow. You grow significantly. So many times we just go through a day and we just kind of go through the next day. And then the next thing you know, it's like, oh, it's been weeks, months. But if you take that moment to just think about that, you start building the building blocks that are inside. Those little bits and pieces become you, stronger. in every way, right? And I did that for a really long time. I'm good about like, I know this is good. I don't know why I'm doing it, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Wow.
All right. Because I saw a lot growing up. Like of course, we ended up in America, not in the best place in terms of just environment. Like we're talking like where we were at. There's gang influences. There was all this stuff, but you didn't have to join any of that. You don't have to like. And I think it starts with like, wow, these guys think this is tough, and I'm like, man, starving is tough. Like that's not tough.
They have no idea.
I'm like, oh, right, like,
Yeah.
But it was always like, why? Because remember, this is the only place that I know of in this planet where you can come from absolutely nothing and have the ability to change your entire family and their families in one lifetime. In one lifetime. There's no greater place. You want to start something, you want to do something, it's here. It's resource rich. You just need to want it bad enough to do it.
Come on.
And I really think that is like the hardest thing. And growing up, like, I had such great examples of that. Like I see my grandpa, even though like he's in his 50s at the time, 60s, like he's doing stuff, he's building things. He used to invite like senators and governors to these meals because we had a big voting block, right? So he would like use that. He's like, hey, we're going to put together a thing and you should help,
Yeah.
and I'd give you a chance to speak. And I was like, gosh, who's this lady? Like, oh, she's like March Fong Yu. I'm like, who's that? Like Secretary of State or blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm like, I have no idea. Like, we'd go to these things and I'm like, okay, Grandpa put this thing together, right? And he like, again, a politician never leaves, businessman, like I learned a lot from him. I still do. Like,
Yeah.
I still do.
And now we all get to, so thank you.
Yeah.
It was just incredible wisdom. I never forget, like, he gave me like this. Remember I told you like history.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, why are we always learning this history stuff? And I'm like, why are we always learning this like Chinese history stuff too? Because they're all like, I'm like, Grandpa, they're all dead. Like all these dynasties like kept getting run over and over. 5,000 years of this stuff, right? And he's like, there's no situation that that we have not seen or been through at all. Anything you can ever want to know about humans and how we're going to go has already happened in the past. You just need to find where that information is and apply it to yourself. So why did this dynasty fall? Why did this happen? Why did Rome fall? Well, they thought and forgot the way they got there was they weren't complacent with it. They wanted to rule the world. Mm-hmm. And that kept driving them until the point where they said, I think we ruled the world now, and I don't think we need to do anymore.
Yeah. The disease of victory crept in.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy, right? And he's like, look at every single downfall of every empire was because they had forgotten what got them there. And it's crazy. They stopped inventing things. They stopped doing things that made them powerful, strong. It's from a macro level, there's that, and then there's like the individual levels as well. You have to continually develop yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to continually be uncomfortable. I was like, what does that mean? Just find, what do you not like doing? Go do a little of it. Until there's nothing that's uncomfortable. I was like, oh. It's like, as a kid, you don't even know what that stuff means. Yeah. You really don't. But like I said, I'm good at following orders that I think is wise,
It's incredible, man.
Yeah. There's so much. I mean, I can go on.
We could be there for and I would mind it if we were able to. I mean, we could do this for 8 hours just on that topic alone. But to kind of just change the pace, if you're okay with this.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I know we're going to go back to your grandfather and other things that he did and what you've learned. But I want our listeners to hear about your beautiful wife and your family and how did you guys meet?
Well, she'll tell this story.
They each have their own version of it. It seems, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of how tied in, and it's funny how it gets tied in. I was transferred 5th grade to a new school district, and there was like a design and ad contest. San Jose Mercury News, all the local businesses gave kids the opportunity to create an ad for them, like a newspaper ad. I was fortunate enough to win for the district ad contest for Colton pianos. My ad was "Come tickle our ivories." Right? It was like, yeah. It was like, yeah, hey,
Dude, that's amazing.
hey, from a 5th grader mind.
I absolutely
Genius
love
in the
it.
making
Oh
right
my
there.
gosh, you're hired.
I had a drawing of like a piano and an organ smiling, ha ha ha. Like, it was like hilarious. Like, the drawings were terrible, but not an artist, but the ad,
Creative.
Yeah, it just adds to the charm.
it was just funny.
Okay.
So of course I'm being paraded around the classrooms. He won, blah blah. And my wife really, she's an artist. She is the artist, the true artist, who wanted to win this thing. And she saw this like skinny, knobby-kneed kid walking around with a plaque that she hated because I won. Right? Fast forward, we're meeting in we're in high school. We're friends. And she comes over to my house one day, and she's like, "Wait a minute, I remember this plaque." Wait, you're the kid that won this thing? I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Yeah, I hated you."
Oh my god!
And she shares the whole story, how she was so jealous, she hated me, blah blah.
Because she is very artistic.
Very.
Yes.
Yes, incredibly
How her brain works when it comes to designing and doing all that stuff, like
gifted.
it's insane.
gifted.
Yeah.
Gifted. And of course, young crush,
Oh yeah.
young love,
Let's go.
all that good stuff. No, she was good. We were, sort of like, hey, I'm having girlfriend problems. And she's like, yeah, these guys. I'm like, so we kept talking. Next thing you know, the phone cord is like in the garage.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
This long extension cord, right? Mom's, what are you doing in the garage? I'm like, Mom,
Yeah.
it's Mom.
Leave me alone.
Yeah. We're like doing that whole thing. And it just, there was another incident, the way I explain it, because I didn't know. In the 7th grade, I get transferred to her history class. And I'm sitting in the back, and she's in the front. I've never met her or anything like that, right, at this point. And she had, like, eucalyptus because she was sick. And my wife is, like, she's mixed-raced. And,
I didn't know that.
yeah, she's, like, her father's German, Irish, all this stuff. Her mom's, like, Filipino, Spanish, so she's a mix.
Okay.
But to me, she looked, non-Asian. Let's put it that way. And the stuff that she had is purely, like, I don't know any other people that have it. If you say eucalyptus, yes, everybody in our culture is like eucalyptus. You rub eucalyptus on anything.
Yeah.
Right?
It heals everything, right?
It heals. It smells great. Put it in the shower. Put it in your feet.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right? And, of course, she's, like, smelling eucalyptus. And I'm sitting, transferred, like, first day coming in. I'm like, what's that smell? And she turns around. Her face is red. She did not look at me the whole time. I'm like, oh, I must have said something bad. Right? And so when we met in high school again, she goes, you're that kid that said, you asked me you said I stink. I'm like, I didn't say you stink. I just asked you what that smell was because I gave her the whole background. But at the time, She didn't care.
Yeah.
It was like, you said I stank. I'm like, I didn't say that. I guess I said that. I don't know. So it was hilarious. And so like 15 years old, we got together. I remember it. It was like March 28, 1991. I asked her to be my girlfriend. Like we went, like it's funny. I was like, "Are we going steady?" Like, oh my gosh, are you from like the '60s? Like, what the hell? Like, what steady? Like, who uses that word? I'm like, I don't know. How do you guys?
People raised by my grandfather.
Yeah, pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like, that's amazing. Are we going steady? Like, what? It was hilarious. I'm supposed to ask you to be my girlfriend, and of course I'm so lucky she takes it easy on me. Like, seriously. It's like, I don't know how, because I'm so stupid in this, like, thing, this dating thing, whatever. And I'm so glad I didn't do much of it. Like, I'm so glad I didn't do much of it. Yeah, we were 23 years married and 33 years together now.
Come on, man. What a blessing.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Oh.
That's and that's one of the things I've always noticed and liked and admired. And Amanda and I, we've talked about it before. And now, obviously, I know every relationship and marriage has their problems that you don't see, that you don't know about. But you guys have always been this couple that at least I know I would look to and be like, man, like that's awesome. Like you guys got a good marriage, you got a good family. You could tell that you guys are good people, and you could tell that you guys love each other, and you're also best friends.
Yes.
Like there's no denying that. Yeah. Just like when you watch Ryan and Jeanette, like they love each other and they're friends and they do life. Like if you when you guys follow Ryan on Instagram, you'll see pictures of him and his family and just pictures of him and Jeanette. Like this is just joy. Like you guys are always happy. Yeah. You're living life. And again, I know we don't see it all, but I'm telling you, like what you and your wife portray as a married couple and as a family it's awesome. And it's really cool. And I love your guys' story. So how many kids do you guys have now? And let's talk a little bit about those boys that
oh boy.
Dude, I love your family. I love your kids. And I've been working hard to get your son to love on me back, man. And he finally does now.
He does. Yeah. We have two boys. 17 and just 13 now. Crazy. Yes. And we grew up with challenges. They're neurodivergent / autistic, but high functioning. We didn't know that until probably when Nolan was like 7 or 8 or so. Like we saw signs, but we just didn't really think much of it, right? And honestly, the way I grew up, there was no thing about mental health. There was like nothing, If you got to eat, you're happy, right? Kind of thing. So yeah, mental health is not a thing you discuss. But it was hard for me to accept that. And of course, you always think, what happened? Like, what did we do wrong? And what did you eat during this process? And all this. You just. Oh my gosh, everything you could possibly think of, like everything we went through, and it was tough. These kids though, oh my goodness.
They're amazing.
It's incredible. It's incredible. And I think what's really funny is my wife didn't want children. Like when we were dating, she goes, she's the only child. She's like, if I have a kid, I have to have two because I don't want,
Yeah.
You don't want a third wheel.
Yeah. but no, I don't know that I don't want children. I was like, oh. And then, of course, I want children. Mm-hmm. In my mind, I will never be satisfied going through this lifetime without being a father. Like, I wanted to be I knew I wanted to be a father. I want so bad. And here's this woman I love incredibly who was just like, no children. It's all kept resonating in my head. But, I always think God has a way.
He does.
And, one day when I saw her play with some kids, and she looked, and the eye, like there's just something in the eyes changed, and you're like, oh, you love kids. She always loved kids.
Yeah.
But then it was like I want my own kids. And I'm like, yes, yes, you do.
Like, well, I know how we can make that happen.
Yeah. Lots of practice.
Yes. We're keeping this neutral for the audience.
So, and love
awesome.
my children. Still, they're coming into their own now. I just like my oldest is like it's hard to describe him. He's very non-emotional. Like his face, you can't read it. Like every picture he's ever had, like unless I pay him $5, he won't smile, and even the smile is fake. Like we have to bribe him.
I know. I'm laughing because I know, and I love your kids.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first met him, I'm like, he will give me a hug one day.
Yeah.
Like, remember I told you that, and you kind of were like, "Good luck."
Good luck with that, bro.
And
Like,
it
good
happened.
luck.
I was like,
yeah.
I remember I was like, yes.
Yes.
He's wearing them down.
Yeah.
But he's so intelligent. I mean, both your kids are super intelligent. He's gifted on the computer and the IT side, like you, my man.
I don't know, but it's a different thing.
Yes.
So here's the since he's 17,
Yeah.
right? We're finally having conversations about him younger.
Oh,
and he's starting to reveal more things. I was like, and just the other day, he's like, Dad, when I was younger, I'm like, yeah. I was like, God, you're still young, but what? Okay, whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was part of this hacker group. There was like 10 of us.
Wait, what?
I was like, what? What does that mean? And I remember I said, is that why I got letters from our ISP threatening to shut our internet down? Back then I was like, why did I get a letter about like shutting us off? Like literally they weren't going to provide service. Maybe it had something to do with that.
How old was he?
13, 14.
Oh my!
And I remember him going into Roblox and stealing people's stuff because, you use real money to buy fake stuff, right? Somehow somehow I'm losing real money.
Yeah, whoever designed that is brilliant.
Brilliant.
By the way.
Right? Like, and I was like, honey, did you give him? Because this stuff is expensive. Mm-hmm. Did you give him these like Roblox bucks or whatever they're called? No? Well, how does he have all this stuff on his character and all this stuff? I don't know. Let's ask him. And of course, he's not good at lying. That's the only thing. He's so bad at lying. Well, Dad, I found this packet of software on this place called GitHub. Okay. And I found
Red
a
flag
video.
number 1, GitHub.
Yeah. I found this and I realized I can exploit their accounts and I can get in and take what I need from their characters and transfer it to mine. Show me. Pulls up his computer. He's like, I'm not going to take it. Don't take anything. Just show me how you're getting in. Pulls up the command prompt, loads up the software, goes to town with it. He's like, see? And it's scanning through all these accounts. And I'm like, huh. Who taught you how to read this code? It just kind of makes sense. I don't know.
What?
Yeah. I was like, what? It's like Python. He's like, it's kind of saying this. I'm like, really? It's saying that? It doesn't look like that to me. I have no idea what it's saying. Right? I don't know. I was messing around with it. And then he's like, but it's just their fault. I'm like, what do you mean it's their fault? They should have set up TUFA. I'm like, what the hell's TUFA? It's two-factor authentication. I'm like, oh, it's their fault they didn't set that up.
You're like, by the way, do we have that set? Do we have that
Yeah.
set?
I was like, yeah, I don't know. There have been many small purchases from Apple over the course of 6 months that I finally asked, honey, why are you buying this every month? Like, what is this thing? She's like, I thought you were buying that. I'm like, I'm not buying that.
Oh my God.
Let's total this up. Okay, I think I know who's doing this. Mm-hmm. So it cracks me up, right? But He's a great kid.
Yeah.
He has zero skills in terms of like, sometimes you accidentally put his brother's like t-shirt in his laundry pile in his closet. He walks out wearing a halter top. Hair's not combed. Hey, you notice that shirt's kind of small on you? He goes, no. That's your brother's shirt. It is? It was in my closet. Right? It's just
boom, boom.
Yeah. He's that kid. But lately I've been talking to him about, hey, you like doing this stuff? You know who loves this stuff? Who's that? The military. He's like, really? I said, and he's one of these kids that for some reason loves like safety. Like for some reason he's always worried about his future, right? I said, yeah, they got great benefits. He's like, really?
Dude, our nation needs your son.
Yeah.
I'm telling you now.
Yeah, it's funny. He's like, he goes, what? I was like, and guess what? You can be put in a room. All you do is, try to hack stuff and you're okay, and it's okay. I'm like, oh yeah, they would love you to do that.
I know a company right now, actually, he listens to this. He might reach out to you. He might hire your son. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not even going to say his name because I don't want people bombarding him.
No, I get it.
I'll connect. This is what he does. He does this for the military. And I'm telling you, he has created things that are incredible. And it's like your son's gift. Like when you're like, oh, he looked at code and it made sense. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah. I appreciate it. I just think he needs some other aspects of his life to come together.
Oh, I agree. I'm not saying we're like hiring your son off
now.
I
know. I was like, oh, but it's just funny, right? Like he's just like, now he's 17 and he can communicate better.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I'm, he's really interested. He's like, and now he's just walking around telling people, what do you want to do in your future? He's like, well, I'm going to be in cybersecurity, but for the military.
So awesome. Okay. Let's go, dude.
It's funny.
That makes me so happy.
It's so funny. COVID was the best thing that ever happened to him. Because guess what? I don't have to interact with people. I could be online. I could be in my room all day for 2 years. He was thriving. I mean, he loved it. I was like, for the rest of us, like we were.
Oh, we were struck. I remember us being over at your guys' house and I was doing stuff and, talking with the kids. You're like, dude, he's doing awesome.
Yeah.
Like, we just got to get him out of the room once in a while, but he's doing great.
Yeah. I asked him about like, do you ever want a girlfriend or something, like a partner? And he's like, Dad, I like girls, first of all. Second, yeah, it's lonely. I'm like, but son, girls are not going to just walk up to your door and knock and say, hey, I'm here, right? Like you have to actually get out and learn to say hi and learn to ask them something. I said, compliment them first, like nice, whatever. He goes, well, what if I don't see anything nice on them? I'm like, what if I'm like, bro,
yes,
it's correct. I'm like, bro, just fake it until you make it. Okay. Just fake it. Just say something. I love what you're wearing.
Pick something that they think is nice,
man.
and then compliment.
Oh, I mean, it's just like binary, this kid. Like,
I would love to do his premarital counseling whenever that comes around.
I want to listen to it.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my goodness, this cracks me up. But yeah, my kids, like that's the oldest one. The youngest one is very different. Still, he's the Mr. Dad. You can't pull chicks like I can pull chicks. I'm like, what are you talking about? Look at this picture. Look at this picture. I'm like, what? It's like there's like all these girls there, and it's just me. Bro. Like he's like the opposite.
You're like, I'm happily married to your mom. I don't pull chicks, son. let's talk about that.
It's just they're both just incredibly different.
Yeah.
Same parents. You know how it is. Like every kid. I think sometimes they're just they're born that way. They're just given that, right? And you just got to work with it. I've learned to not expect it to go a certain way and just kind of maneuver around it as a parent.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we both just like, you go to your mom for certain things, you go to me for certain things, right?
That's cool. I mean, yeah, that's parenting.
Yeah.
That's all. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, dude, like I said, our families love each other. I love our kids have always gotten along well. So I want to go back to sports, specifically pole vaulting because there's a lesson to be pulled from that because I feel like this is kind of just the base of who you are and what you've done in life, in sports, in business. You said something before we started recording, and I kind of want to go back to that because I think it's amazing. You're just like, wait, what is this? Boom, let me do it. And you've done that a lot in business and in life. You just go after it. You just get after it and you make it happen.
I think that inertia and hesitation and all of those things are what creates problems for people. And I have a very good example of that. It's like my father, I love him, but he is exactly the opposite of me when it comes to that. And I saw that growing up. Like, my mom, who was just a go-getter. She was just like, you want to learn piano? Yeah. They don't teach it at the school. Well, let me go talk to them. She'd bring a keyboard, walk in there, and barely speaks any English. Teach my son this. And the music teacher's like, oh, we don't teach piano, ma'am. She goes, teach him this. We can't, and she's like, okay, well, I tried. I asked, right? Like, it's just like she just does stuff.
It's amazing.
And then she's like, look, I don't understand any of these things they're giving me. I'm like, Mom, that's my lunch form. And in order for me to eat lunch, I have to sign this up because the government will help subsidize it and I get free lunch. But she's like, well, unless you sign it, you're going to go hungry. I'm like, okay, so I better learn how to read this stuff. And she goes, by the way, let me show you how to write my signature. Like, okay. So, she's like, here, you don't need me to do that. You will figure that out. You can write my signature on whatever you need for school. Okay. Right. It's like, she's just don't want to deal with this stuff because it's not as important, right? Like, you want it, you go get it. My dad, he could barely approach anyone because he'll like, before he even walks up, he'll think, my English isn't that good. I don't know this person. I don't know how to do it. And he, besides the one decision to like bring us here because he wants to see better, like, most of his decisions have been because he was too scared, too nervous, too self-doubting in every way. And I saw that growing up. And I was always like, come on, Dad, you got to just do this. Like, just go. And he's a brilliant man. Like, he's also one of these like guys that didn't know anything. And it's like, he puts a computer together. And you're like, what? Yeah. Because he got interested. And he's really smart. And I remember we had our Jeep, and I walk in the garage, and the entire engine is dismantled, and every nut and bolt laid out, like it's almost like a like a diagram of like every screw and everything. It was just like all laid out on the floor. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm fixing my car. I'm like, do you know how? He goes, I don't, but I'll figure it out. I'll put it back exactly the way I took it out. And, and he'll tinker with it, and like, I was like, that looks heavy. He goes, no, not with the right lever. You can pull. So like, he's naturally good at things. Yeah. But when it came down to like doing it for himself and doing it for the family, he never got over that. Till this day, he's still very much like, whenever anything needed to be happening, it was like my mom. Like, my mom would be his shield, and then I would be his shield. And so my mother and I early on would get together and just have agreements with each other. I'm like, Dad's not going to do that. I'm like, yeah. So and like, my mother and I have a bank account together since I was a kid, right? Like, since I was a kid. And because if we didn't, my father would not know how to save. He was not good at self-reflection, managing himself. Like, everything that I learned, I was like watching, I was like, I'm not sure if I want to do that.
That's interesting because a lot of that, well, you learned that from watching him, but then also your grandfather taught you a lot of these things.
Yes.
Did him and your grandfather not have a good relationship?
They didn't. Well, I mean, they did not in the traditional sense. And it's only because, like, my grandfather, when I guess it's always like one generation, like, they're different. He was gone most of the time for his kids. Okay. Right? He was gone. He was like always gone. And my grandmother raised my dad and everybody, and she wasn't educated. Like, back in that time, in that place in life, women were not educated. They're purposely not taught. Yeah. Because then they can't challenge the men. Like, it's just a crazy, crazy idea. Yeah. Right? And so, if you're, you know,
It was the same thing in Iraq and Afghanistan when I was there, man. It's disgusting.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
You know, and my grandma, like, you know, she grew up like not knowing how to properly teach her kids. You know, like it's
Okay. Yeah.
You know, and and my grandpa wasn't around. So like, look, I can say it now, but you know, not only was it hard for him, I had a hard time dealing with my father for a long time, all the way to the point of like, you know, our first son. And I remember talking to Jen about like, should I invite my dad to the hospital to see my kid? You know, at first it was like, no, absolutely not. He'll never meet his grandson. Like I was just very vehemently against it because for some reason I felt like I needed to protect my unborn child from this man who was like not good with himself, you know, in every way, flawed. You know, but it's like, and then I really, like I said, I think deeply about these things. I think, why is he like that? What happened?
Yeah.
And you trace it back to the very thing I just described. I'm like, wow, he grew up not knowing anything else different. And he didn't, you know, he wasn't reflective enough to really try to think about bettering himself. And I know that it's like it's like, oh, it's so self-help and all this stuff. Yeah, I think everybody should do some level of self-help.
Yeah.
You know, do not let everything in the world come into your head and just sway you in every way possible. Be rooted in yourself. Like find your root. Find it. Steel yourself to the ground. Like what is it? What are the core things? And it was like that. I mean, like I had my mom sign. I was like, Jeanette will never let me forget this because at 16, I missed her birthday. You know, we'd been dating for a year. Like I missed her birthday. Why? Because I decided the freaking most awesome thing to do on her birthday was to fly to Utah and be at an Amway convention. Right? Like it was like the thing.
Yeah.
Because back then it was like, you know, network marketing.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, I know. And I was like, oh, this is great. And I say, Mom, I'm not allowed to do this. I'm not 18. Can you sign this? So, of course, I'm building a downline, right? Like I'm getting a bunch of people. And they're like, who's this kid getting a bunch of people? We should fly him to like, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm like, yeah. So I saved up all my Chuck E. Cheese money. I was working, saved every dime.
You were working at Chuck E. Cheese?
Oh, yeah. I was like, I can make some seriously good pizza. You know, I could chop up some pizza. Like I still like remember the blade cutting.
The circle.
Oh yeah, but I can go real quick.
Oh.
Like people used to watch because I'm like, because the stuff was backing up. Like 4 pizzas on the top,
Yep.
4 pizzas coming in, sling it, cut it, box it, go. It's like, you know, it was like one of those things.
I didn't know we shared that skill set.
Oh,
slinging pizzas, cutting. Yes, let's go,
dude. It's like, oh, of course, babe. You know, this is important for my life. I gotta go. I have to. You know, I don't. You know, it's yeah. Like I default to action because I really think that overthinking it has caused problems. Like I see it all the time. You know, it's better to like do some, fail at it, and then confidence can only be built because you've failed. If you've never failed, you're like you have the wrong type of confidence. Right?
Yeah, that false confidence.
Yeah. Like so, it's iterative. You got to do it. Like just make sure you fail small things first. Right?
There's a lot of wisdom there.
Oh gosh. So
There's
like,
a
of
lot
course,
of
I'm at Amway, and you know, I'm like listening, and I'm like, but those speeches and the indoctrination at that age of messages, especially for somebody like me who was like very receptive to hearing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't about like, you know, just building down. Yeah, that's part of it. But like some of those messages got through. And some of those, you know, Dale Carnegie philosophies and
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn, yeah. Like it gets through and you're like, you know, I love this stuff. And it's not, you know, yes, you're young, you're passionate. There's all this emotion, but when it's all settled, it's like, what's inside? What matters? And it's like, I'm charting a different course. So, you know, back to I don't know how we ended up here.
No, I like it.
You know,
There's a lot of what you just said. I'm like literally taking notes and taking in, like you just said, you're like, I love this stuff. It was that personal development.
Yeah.
That's what you were seeking. That's what you're desiring. And I think we all want that. And you were just more intentional with going and getting it and applying it to your life.
Because
you saw that your father hadn't,
Yeah.
which is unique because like we all have the ability to be shaped and defined by our parents, good and bad. And you saw things in your dad that you didn't like, and you're like, hey, I'm not going to do that. And I have a father still, he's still alive. I love my parents. They're incredible. My dad and mom showed me how to work hard.
Yeah.
And, that's what and my dad was always working. And it was just like, go, 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 go. And so that's something that I've always taken on. And I'm so thankful that my, dad showed me like, hey, you have a gift from God to go work right now, go work. And same with my mom, and so I was just reflecting on that as you were, saying that about your father. And I love how you also did a really good job, like still honoring your father by sharing everything that you shared. You're like, hey, I love my father. And, unfortunately, I found was powerful of what you said was you were able to detach and have empathy and say, what caused this for him?
Yeah. Granted, that came, further in life, as any kid growing up, right? There's certain circumstances that just make you angry. Right.
Yeah.
Of course. It's funny. You get to the realization early that the world's unfair and oh my goodness. But then you also have to go back and say, everything I could ever want is really here and reachable. Right. In this place, in this time, there's never been a better time to live. And even as a kid, I was like, I'm not in the best neighborhoods, but boy, I have food every day. There's like roof, like I go home.
Yeah.
Right. And that's enough as a baseline. Like it's good. It's good. It's good enough.
Yeah.
Let's go build. And I think, my parents worked hard. Don't get me wrong. Like my dad, he was my parents were janitors and did that for 20 some years. Like it's the only job, it's like, and then we used to clean. I mean, they used to bring me to go help. And we would work the night shift, when in these companies early days, I used to like help him vacuum and they would do all the other stuff. And I used to like vacuum people's like cubicles and offices. And I used to wonder like, who sits in this chair? Why does this person sit in an office? Who is it? What do they do? And I always I wanted to understand, right? And, they worked hard, but the thing that's different is they work really hard. And I believe my father thought that was enough. There was like a moment of like, that's enough. It's hard. And I could say, you know what, Dad? Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. But I know for me, it was like you endure and then you find something and you still pursue it. Like you can work in a parallel path. It didn't have to be like, I'm going to go cold turkey, jump into this thing. But it's like, I know I knew I was going through like my winter. Like I had to put in the time. I had to work. I had to build. Like anybody that thinks they didn't ever achieve anything great without putting in work is just delusional. Like, and I really feel like that's the message like people got, kids, everybody. I really hated, this best-selling book called The Secret. I hate it. When it first came out, I wanted to, this whole like, you get what you're intending to get and you just have to think it, will it, want it. And it's like, what? Who the heck wrote this? And why is it? And I was like, Oprah, what are you doing? Putting this lady on, like, I don't know what happened. She sold something really good to everyone and made a lot of money. But the power of intention, like the whole secret, like, bro, you know what the secret is? Work your ass off. Let's go. That's the secret. Like it's like that's the secret, right? Like
We should just be like,
it's
and
just-
that's been episode 8. Thank you.
John, that's
That was-
so perfect.
I'm so glad you said
That that's one of the few books that I would like endorse a book burning for.
Oh my god! But the problem is, it created a whole generation of people that only intend, only wish, only. The number of people I talk to, like, what do you want to do? I want to be a doctor. I'm like, oh, awesome. What are you doing for it? What do you mean? Like, are you studying hard? Like, what are your grades like? C's, D's. Why? I'm not as focused. I'm like, didn't you just say you want to be a doctor? Yeah. Okay. Does that make sense? What do you mean? If I am able to pursue anything I want and dream. I'm like, yes, agreed.
I agree. Yep.
But what are the steps to get there? What are you willing to give up to get it? Because it's not going to be free. It's not going to just be handed to you, right? It's like not. Even if it was handed to you, you wouldn't be able to do a proper job of it. So you shouldn't be given it. Like, it's just, it's like, like, look, I'm almost 50 years old. I always think of my life as like I'm on a plane and now I'm coming down. Like, it's like I'm gliding my way down. By the time I hit the runway, I hope the wings are gone, the wheels are not working. Like, I want to crash and burn into the end, right? And I want to leave a really good impact. And it's like, yeah, we all went through that. But when I was younger, I knew, like, I saw my parents, I saw them. My mom, later in her career changed to working in restaurants. When she came home, she had burns from like oil on her hands. And one day she took her shoes off and I'm watching and her feet are chapped and it's bleeding. I'm like, what happened? She's like, oh, like she's been standing all day, right? Working hard is not like, it's like, that is baseline.
Yeah.
That should just be fundamental. That's a building block.
That. Working hard is baseline.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, that should just be like, yeah, you're going to work hard. Right. And then you build on top of that. But what do you want? What are you working hard for? Right. Working hard just to work hard, or what are you working hard for?
Yeah.
Right.
With intention, right?
Yes. And I think, back into the whole pole vaulting thing, it was really, interesting and happenstance because I had no concept of it. I did sports. Yeah. I did cross country, wrestling. I did track and field. Like, I was like, and it's funny. I did all those things because if you didn't, there's a gang calling you, right? Like, they're all over the place, right? It's like, what are you going to do? Go home? Like, you're going to loiter. And then it goes, hey, you want to hang out over here? And the next thing you know, they're your friends. And next thing you know, you're like associate to a gang. That's like the way our neighborhood was. So it's like, hey, I saw you with these people. And then you realize association is key, right? Like, don't be associated, right? Because it's like, wait, I don't want to be associated to that. So I'm not going to hang out with them. They're great people. Like, look, great people. But I don't want to be associated because I don't want that to be my reputation, right? And so I did sports. And guess what? When you do sports, you have no other time.
Yeah.
You know other time. I think my brother, both of them growing up, you're doing sports. Why? Because I saw the schools. I saw the stuff they would get into. You're going to do everything I do. You're going to do everything I do. Why? Because then when you're so tired, you don't want to go out. You don't want to go out. You have no time for that, right? They didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, my youngest one, unfortunately I was like getting into college and I couldn't be the older brother that did that for him. And he ended up in some not so good situations.
Yeah.
And
hanging out with people he shouldn't have been hanging out with.
Yeah. And of course my mother's like, hey, there's a policeman at the door. Go deal with it. it was one of those things, like, look, everybody has circumstances they grow up with, but don't let those circumstances dictate what you want in life. Like, they don't have to. You can see the same thing and see it differently. Like, two people can look at the same thing and just see it differently. I always chose not to see it that way. I always chose to see, yeah, Parents were janitors, proud of it. They put food on the table,
Heck yeah.
right? Like nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
So what? Like, okay, so I'm going to go do this, right? And so like pole vaulting was like, hey, coach, what is the percentage of people that get a scholarship? It's like, you know, there's a higher chance of you getting a scholarship from this really obscure thing than you doing tennis, football, baseball, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you're right, because everyone wants to get a basketball scholarship. Mm-hmm. Everyone wants, and I knew, like, look, I'm good, but I am not great. Like, there's no, let's go be honest with ourselves. Like, I'm not going to go be like a freaking NFL, like any play, not even close, maybe even junior college, right? Like kind of thing. And you got to just be mindful of that. Like your limitations are not a limitation, but acknowledge what they are. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm like, okay, this obscure sport, you get scholarships. Oh, I'm in. And so there you go. Wow. Plugged away, got a scholarship, went to college. My brother, what are you doing? Oh, I love wrestling. I'm like, you know what? You're going to pole vault too, right? Come, bring him over. And he did it. He got a scholarship. He went to school for it. You know, at the time that we were at growing up, you know, and my brother and I spoke about this. It's funny, you know, and I'm sharing our private conversation, but I think it's really worthwhile. He left when he was, 17, 18, and he went to Missouri. And, now like we're older men, he's like, I really feel like there's a part of my life that was missed because I left. And I'll never get that back. But the stories that you and, my younger brother, John, and my sister share, I don't have that bond for that during that time period, right? And he felt really bad about it. And I go, but bro, think about it this way. I'm with you now.
Yep.
You're getting a better version of me. You're getting everything now, and I've been with you longer than I have been with them over there, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, I go, but you had to leave. He's like, what? I go, you had no idea what was happening at the time. My parents were on the verge of arguments every day. They didn't know divorce, thank goodness, but they just were unhappy people. And I said, if you stayed, you would have been sucked into the drama, not get out, never graduate out of college. You had to go.
Yeah.
And he was, interestingly enough, he listens to me, which is crazy. But I pretty much kicked him out. I'm like, bro, you're out. You're taking the scholarship. You are out. And he left. And I'm glad he did, because he was able to get out of school and, avoid all that stuff. I knew myself that I could get through it, like this difficult period in our lives.
Yeah.
Would bring a lot of people down. I knew. But I think he would have been too easily influenced by everything around.
And this was you also protecting your brother.
Oh, 1,000%.
Which is incredible that you had the ability and the hindsight to do that, man.
The minute I held him in my hands, I knew I was going to protect him as a baby. It's like, it's my parents said it to me this way. And, of course you argue with your siblings and stuff. And one day it just got real bad. And my parents, I think my mom, she pulled me aside and she says, look, I'm going to tell you this. You guys can argue. You guys can fight. You do all that stuff. That's a choice. But these people that you're born with are going to be the closest people in your entire life. They came into life with you in this family. You can choose to fight them and not get along. But you can also think of it as a gift that you have siblings and treat them that way. That was the only conversation I ever had to have with her. Never fought with them. You ask them. Like, I rarely ever fight, if ever, with my siblings.
Yeah. Because
we think of it that way. So, love them dearly. Can't wait to see them this Thanksgiving. I'll coming together and stuff every year.
Let's
So,
go.
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is we'll transition kind of to closing out this episode, because we're going to do this again if you're willing to, because our next episode, I'd really like us to dive into business of what you've built, developed, sold, what you're doing now. But man, this episode for me, I'm being super selfish, was so fulfilling for me, just to remember things, to learn new things from you. So I want to thank you for that. I'm sure you felt the same way.
Oh, man.
I mean, and you know what I'm excited is to have my kids sit down and listen to this, because I know what my kids are going to learn from this is just literally will change their trajectory and direction at the same time.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's a new word. It's
Projection.
the new
Beautiful
JP word.
I like it.
So I just have a few questions before we close, and I know Lucas has a question, and then but real quick. So sports, athletics, wrestling, we met training jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
And so, I mean, which is incredible. I mean, you're a successful businessman, family man, husband, you have all these things going on, yet you still make jiu-jitsu a priority, and you train at a really good school here. Tell us about the school you train at, your professors, which I love. I'm connected to them as well, good friends of ours. Yeah. And it's cool, the jiu-jitsu community here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But why do you train? And what do you get from training and competing?
So I train at 413 Jiu-Jitsu under Pedro Hocha.
Yep. Which is spelled R-O-C-A. I'm sorry, R-O-C-H-A.
Yes. I'm picking up the whole like Brazilian.
Yes.
R's are H's. Like the first time I heard them say Hio, I'm like, where's Hio? You mean Rio? Oh, I was like,
Let's go.
No, it's
413 in South Lake, right?
That's correct.
Yep.
That's correct. I train jiu-jitsu because look, it's mind, body, spirit. Those are the three components, right? All of those things are important. You know, if you don't train your body, your mind's not right. And if your mind's not right, your spirit's not right. Like they're all, it's like the trifecta of everything. But what I get out of jiu-jitsu is really, it's an incredible experience where it's all walks of life. You know, you and I met. We couldn't be so different, right? If you think about it.
Dude.
How did we end up in the same place, right? And there's a lot of those stories. And it was really important, you know, like I said, it was like it's interesting how I actually got started. It was just a bunch of us friends just hanging out. We were hanging out every Saturday, drinking beer, playing poker, or playing on our phones, some games, every Saturday. At some point I said, you know, guys, we're getting old and we're getting fat and we're getting unhealthy. We got to do something different. And they just looked at me like, I was like, all right. So, yeah. So I looked up gyms, right? Like I just said MMA Keller. And I said, oh, and this is what the first, peak came up.
Yeah.
Incredible. I was like, oh, there's one really close. Let me go email, sign up for a class. I show up, the first class, and I threw up. I went to the bathroom. I'm like, oh my gosh, that sucked. I'm coming back.
And it was you, your brother, Nick Witten, David Jackson. Yes. Was that
those were the guys that were hanging out, and it took some convincing. It really did, because we're all stuck in our own like routines. It's just the way the whole complacency thing. You just get stuck, right? Like it's fun. It's fun. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, it's fun, but it's unhealthy, and it's not what I really want deep down.
Yeah. None of us want that. No.
I want the connection, but I didn't want the health benefits or lack of, And so I went and started jiu-jitsu. It's just an incredible experience because it really builds the body, first of all, in a very dramatic way, in a very quick way. And it's just interacting with a community of people. It's it's like it's kind of like trauma bonding, but you're not really in that level of trauma, right? Because there's nothing more beautiful than some big guy trying to squeeze you out, dripping sweat on your face, and you're like, good job, buddy. It's like there's something about that, and then you guys go, man, that was good. Thanks.
I mean, I know you listen to Jocko's podcast sometimes, and you listen to Joe Rogan's and other people that talk about jiu-jitsu. I still don't, nobody knows what it is, but there is something legitimately special about jiu-jitsu that just ignites something. I think it's a part of like you were talking about, like that trauma bonding.
Yeah.
That actually, there might be a lot there because you're going through something very hard. But not only is it very hard, you're going through a very hard, strenuous activity where you can get hurt. People do get hurt. You're trying to defend yourself from somebody that's trying to submit you or choke you out. They're trying to, you know what I mean? Like you're putting
I'm limping into this episode right now.
You're putting yourself in that environment willingly, but you're also doing it with other people that you form great bonds and friendships and everything with. So
I think I thought a lot about this. Why jiu-jitsu? Why this particular activity? The thing I came out with it was most men in society today are lost. We were hardwired to do difficult things, fight things, to hunt things. We have no direction on any of that anymore. We don't need to, but it does not mean that innately that's gone. And jiu-jitsu provides an outlet, a safe outlet for you to sort of tap into, at this point, to the traditions of your DNA.
Yeah.
Like you're going ancient bonds, like, which is how we were wired, right? I see a lot of that. Like, it's like they just need to feel a purpose, right? And this activity is the closest thing to us all hunting together. You know what I mean? Like it's just that, it's like that common, that community of people doing that. Now, women do it too, kids, everybody. It's just like, but generally it's males at a certain age that forgot what their DNA imprints them to do.
Yeah.
Build that community where we do something difficult together is really what it is. And this is a very difficult thing to do together.
It is.
Yeah.
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 So one final question. I know Lucas has questions. So where, I started off with Proverbs 10:1. A wise child brings joy to a father. A foolish child brings grief to a mother. And I stated it with that was, I mean, today's the 10th day of the month. So I try to read whatever Proverbs it is for that day of the month. And that verse stood out to me for you because that's what you've done. I know that you've brought joy to your family. I know your parents are proud of you. I know your brother's proud of you. Your brothers, your sister. I know that because I've talked to them about it. I've seen it. You know what I mean? Like, I know that. I'm proud of you as a friend. And I know that this is what you've done is because you've sought wisdom. You seek wisdom. You challenge yourself. Everything that you gave to us on this podcast is straight wisdom that we all can apply. So that's why I started. And we've mentioned and said little things. And so just, I'm curious, like, what's your relationship like with God? Like, where do you stand in regards to just your belief and in regards to like the things that have happened in your life and how you've been guided and like, what's your stance on that?
So my relationship with God is solid, first of all.
Yeah.
And it's over the course of time, I think I get to know him better. And it wasn't through great times. It's always been through pockets of moments that reveal it, that allow me to understand it deeper, right? And so it's, I think the divine presence is in all things. Mm-hmm. I feel it. It's an energy. We are energy. I just walk knowing that everything is right. No matter what situationally you think is wrong, everything is right. You're exactly where you need to be. And I think there's comfort in that, right? I think there's comfort in that. It's like, it's just it's hard to describe it, individually for everyone. But for me, I walk out and it's raining. It's perfect. I walk out, I step on poop. It's perfect. It's fine, right? Like I'm exactly where I need to be. Like I struggle. There's some moments where even me, I've been down some really dark places in my mind. Places where I never thought words I never think I'd say. My family doesn't need me and all this other stuff. And it's like when that happens, I take a moment and I let go. And then there's a certain embrace that comes in that says it's not true. And it's incredible. It's in those moments where you just kind of give it to God. And that's what that means. It's like, don't fight it. Embrace those feelings. And all of a sudden there's healing that comes into that. It's something that I've, even early on as a kid, I keep a mind space about. And I think it's important for everyone, to really go through this exercise of, if you go deep, deep, deep inside your mind, in your heart, wherever it is that you feel is the deepest part of yourself, what is there? What are the images that are there? I have images of God. I have images of my family. I have, in my mind, there's a castle there that's impenetrable. Nothing can get in there except what I want in there. And I have images of that. The things that are most sacred to me are in that space, in my mind. And so anything in life that comes in never makes it that far. And I keep it there. And I remind myself I got to be there. And so sometimes when I get out of that fortress and the world's like doing some crazy stuff, I retreat back into that place in my mind, that castle, and what is around me. And I feel incredible love there. That's what gets me through that. And that's an exercise that you continually practice and add to it and keep going back. It's a wonderful exercise that,
I mean, the Bible tells us to protect our heart and our mind. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm hearing you say, which is incredible. So, wow. Lucas, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah. So I have a ton of things written down, but I'll try to keep it brief. You talked about your granddad saying that everything in history repeats itself. And it reminds me of Ecclesiastes 1:9. It says, what has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There's nothing new under the sun. And when we think about that in particular in relationship to some of the things that you brought up about the lack of traditions and rituals that we have in modern society. There's a guy who's a friend of mine. He's a best-selling author. His name's Stephen Mansfield. And he has written a series of books on manhood, and they start with teaching how to teach manhood to teenagers, because there was an African proverb that really spoke to him. And the proverb goes like this: if you don't initiate the boys, they will burn down the village just to feel its warmth. So as a father, right. So as a father of two sons, what rituals and traditions have you implemented in your family to help initiate them into manhood? And then kind of part two of that would be, I'm a dad. Now, my first kiddo is 14 months old. We've got our second son that's due in April, Lord willing. And so what are some things that I can start to do that will help them to be initiated into manhood? And what are some ways that I can start some of those traditions and rituals in my own family?
I think for our family, everybody has a different way of going about it. For us, it really started with, you're going to eat dinner with us at the table uninterrupted. That's a simple thing that people can do, but it's incredibly powerful, right? We wait until everyone's done eating before you get out, because that's really important. That's like one tradition. and as they get older, they're going to help set the table. They're going to help, and they're going to help prepare the food. They're going to help with skills that they have to learn. And I think that you layer in those things as they grow. And some things are more, as my kid's like 17, I open up more chapters and parts where I think he'll understand. I think some of the things that I impart are like traditions and learnings that I have, right? That were really important to me. And I think that tradition is also like a verbal legacy, right? It's stories, it's things, it's why. And so I talk to him now about things that, he understands. It's uncomfortable. We start talking about God. Like my son is at a place now where he questions God and everything, which is natural. Like,
Yeah.
He's 17, but I love that. I love that he's doing that. And you have to guide, right? And so it's like you do need to ask those questions now. This is the time to do it, right? And I'll probably at some point, I actually was thinking like I need to find something symbolic to do. Like maybe we go on a hunt or like something.
Yeah.
I'm still thinking about it. When he turns 18, I'm like, I gotta do something. But you have to, if you don't have rituals in the family, you can create one. It's okay, right? It's purposeful. It's something that then they will carry on. They'll remember because somebody had to start it, right? And I think a lot of the things that, traditions, for me were cultural. They were inherited, but I think they were worth it. And, as you get older. So I don't have like a particular like rite of passage thing, but I do have wisdom to share at certain parts of their lives as they age. And, like I have two in different age groups right now. And it's great seeing that. And I think it's, my wife and I actually talked about it, like, me and him going as the boys get older, just us.
Yeah.
Dad, and like we're going on a trip together or something, right? Like you got to create something, that special thing, and then they'll carry it on. So whatever it is you guys like doing, just do it. I think that's the key. Just do it together, and that is your tradition.
Yeah. I like the idea that it can be something as simple as having dinner together. Because I think a lot of times when we think about this stuff, we try to make it a grand thing. Like it's got to be this big deal. But just having dinner together is an important thing, right? And those are things that, they create legacy. Because the discussions that you're having at dinner, imparting that wisdom, those are going to be memories that they carry to, their kids, right? Yeah. Whenever he gets out of his room and starts dating.
Yeah, I would. Right. I would be bold enough to say that if every family had dinner together every night, the entire society would change.
I would back you up on that.
Yeah.
Something that my family needs to start doing, and that starts with me. And I'm not saying my family, like they're not doing it. I'm not doing it. I haven't made that a priority. Yeah. And as you were saying it, I was like, cool, this is what we're going to start doing. Because like what you're just talking about is an opportunity to talk and listen to your kids and actually get, I do think that's one of the appeals of jiu-jitsu though, is because there is a bit of, not only is there tradition within jiu-jitsu as a martial art, but the part of the ritual of like getting the new belt, that now you've earned the respect of all of the people that are part of, your gym, you've earned the respect of your professors, and now you've moved up to that new rank. And even though, if you're a blue belt, you may still tap to white belts every now and then. And, as it goes on, that's definitely going to happen. But that confidence boost that you get from going through the ritual of like, hey, I got my new belt, you walk the line, you get your whoops, and then you're on to the next thing. I think it's awesome. Yes, I agree. What else? Okay, so if we're going to allow me multiple questions, the next one I've got is how many phone calls do you think your parents missed whenever you were on the telephone with Jeanette in the garage?
Oh my goodness!
Because this was before call waiting.
Oh yeah.
That's an amazing question.
I wonder how. I wonder how many business deals I've ruined, or
exactly.
I have no idea. Like,
Right.
Oh
my
man.
gosh, man, that phone cord was long though.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, we had one too. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was when we were saying that. That was one of my thoughts, and my second thought that kind of goes hand in hand with that is that I think I blame you now for all of the soccer moms I know that sell essential oils, because you were on that Amway train so early on.
Oh my goodness!
That now
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So I have a question about that in particular though, because the multi-level marketing taught so many of us who thought we were going to be young entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Right. It taught us how to network. It taught us how to do and to create business deals. And because those types of things don't exist as prevalent on the internet, what we're seeing is a lot of like young millennials and Gen Z and this next generation are spending a lot more time in their room, detached from everybody and those kind of things. So how do we teach, kids your son's age, right? And the students that I have in our youth group, how do we go and how do we teach them the importance and the value of community?
Yeah. I think it's got to get involved in a project, whatever the interest is. You guys want to do drop shipping? Great. Let's get together a bunch of other people that wants to do it and get together. And you guys don't want to meet? It's okay. Let's get on a Zoom call or some conference call where you guys will talk about this regularly and you guide it. Whatever the activity is, right? I think they're okay with that. And then once in a while you throw in, let's meet in person. Then they're okay with that, right? I can't. It's incredible that at 17, my son for the first time said, "Can I spend the night somewhere?" Normally, it'd be like, "Hey, I have to spend the night here," and 7 a.m, pick me up.
Yeah.
Right. But it was like you were just hanging out. You want to spend the night, and Jeanette and I were celebrating, right? Because that means that he found
amazing.
a group, and it's like. Whatever the project is, they can't do it without others. And that's what you got to find. I think that's so important. It's like find something they can't do by themselves. They have to do together. And I think that will get them a lot more, like all the communication or lack of, at least they're not like sitting next to each other, talking to each other, but through a chat thing, even though they're sitting right next to each other. Right? Find something they both have to solve together. And sometimes it's just games. Like if you actually have to be on a team and play Pictionary, that's fine, right? You're doing something, you're solving something together. I think that's like the thing. So I look for little projects. I think that they can do. I ask help, and then I get. It's interesting now. My son will bring his friends over. We roll out the mat, and they're like, "Dad, they want to do jiu-jitsu in the garage." I'm like, as long as they sign waivers, because I had a kid like. Break his teeth in the garage. I'm like, oh my goodness. But, but it's like they want to do that.
Yeah.
It's fine. I love it. It's like do something together.
That's awesome. I love that. And that statement alone, everybody should apply, not only just to your family and your kids, but also to your business, to just everything. Just doing stuff, doing hard things, solving problems with other people creates bonds.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you. I want to be respectful of your time, and just want to say I'm very, very appreciative of your friendship, of everything that you've taught me over the years, and I'm looking forward to living a life of friendship with you and your family. And I just want to thank all of our listeners for all the support each of you guys have given us by listening, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. That actually helps us out a lot. If you want to follow us on social media, I am at JP Dinnell. Lucas is at LUCASPINCKARD, and Ryan is at Ryan Vong, RyanVong. He is on Instagram, and LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, you can just look him up as Ryan Vong. Make sure you're also following Echelon Front. That's at Echelon Front on social media. And if you want to learn more about what we do at Echelon Front, please go to echelonfront.com. I would love to see you guys at a future event or for one of our instructors to come work with you and your company. If you have the time, you can also check out at Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu. That's at Jesus and Jiu-Jitsu _USA, at Little Cattle Co. That's a beef company that I
Get that beef.
Get that beef.
Mm-hmm.
I am a partner with my best friend Stephen Little. And On the Path Printing, which I am also partner with my other best friend, Josh Strasburger. Just some companies and ministries I'm a part of. So if you want to check them out and support us, we always appreciate it. Especially with the holidays coming up. Actually, we just had a company, they made orders for all their big clients, all their customers, where they were able to mail us holiday cards and be able to send packages to all their customers from Little Cattle Co. And we added their holiday cards in there. So, I'm very thankful for men like Ryan who have decided to not allow life to dictate what he gets, but dictate what he gets from life, and who has chosen to make the most of this life for him, his family, and all the friends around him. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, Episode 8.